thanks for coming out. I just want to start to hand these out. I want to thank David and Matt and Lauren and Deborah, of course, for setting this up. I really appreciate them giving us the space to chat today. If anyone wants a full copy of this presentation, you just have to either leave your email address or a business card, and we'll send it off to you directly. There's going to be plenty of time for questions. Don't be aggravating and ask questions in between. We'll do questions at a specific time. It'll be great. One question for you guys. Does anyone here shoot for stock? And do you have stuff at stock houses? Okay, so just a few of you. Okay. So the way we're going to move forward is I'm going to have 3 or 4 campaigns, ad campaigns, to look at, and we're going to break down in a way that you can see the entire process of how to go about estimating. And the first thing I'll tell you is estimating is really about connecting with the person on the other side, whether it's a creative director or an art buyer. It's about this communication that you're going to start with. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through an editorial job, a location job, a still life job, and a pro bono project. And we're going to start with the pro bono project. And you'll see the ads that are being passed around. These were layouts that were given to us. And part of again, this process that you start is about communicating and being interested and interesting to the client on the other side. So it's not always about your numbers, it's about what are you going to bring to this project so that as you start to speak to your art buyer or art director or creative director, they realize that you're in this on a different level. So as you go through these ads were for crystal meth. And it was a project that when we saw the ads, the photographer and I, we said we got to get these. We really, really want to do the project. And it was something that we knew right away it wasn't going to be a big budget. It's a pro bono account. But what we did was we said, let's see what's really involved and go at it from a standpoint of no one could do it better than us. Because we knew on the back end, having this body of work in our portfolio or on our website was going to stand out. This isn't, a young woman holding a Breck bottle of shampoo. This stuff is really important, and it's important work. So we recognize the importance of it, and I always like to come up with a sort of a plan of attack. And the first thing, like I said, it's a pro bono account. So you look at the ads, you digest them, you start thinking about the call. When you call the art buyer, what are you going to say? What are you talking about? What are you thinking? How are you going to go about it? And that goes right into the estimate. What are we going to put together as far as the estimate to get this job? And something that I always like to do with the photographers that I represent is create this creative separation. Something that makes you stand out from your competition. And it could be any number of things, and it doesn't matter really what you're shooting, what type of account. It's about me making my photographer stand out. And I mean, there's a lot of jobs that come through, and it's hard to do that, but there are ways to do it. So how are we going to shoot this? The first thing I do is I call my producer, and I let her know. I send the layouts. This woman on this particular project that came through, Trisha Moran worked on it. Great producer. And by giving it to somebody outside right away, and you don't have the job, but you have another set of eyes. You have somebody else looking at this, and if it's somebody that you trust, and that could be an assistant, that could be your studio manager, that could be your wife, it could be anybody, take a look at this. What do you think? How would you go about doing this? And the producer also brings a piece of it from the standpoint of what resources do I have that maybe we can make this work, because the pro bono account is not going to be a lot of money. But if you know the people you're working with, everyone's got to be all in. And for this type of work, you say, yeah, everyone's going to want to do this. So it's a pro bono account, and you sort of create an overview for yourself. Again, it's that plan of attack, and you start to prep for the phone call. What am I going to say to this art buyer? How am I going to go about it? And you create the list of questions. But what I also like to do is do a little research either on the account itself or the ad agency or the design firm, with the thinking that this is the website for the ad agency. So for me, I'm doing a little bit of research before I make that phone call to say, I have a little bit of knowledge of your ad agency. I know some of the other clients that you represent. You have Jeep, you have Nike, you have P&G. So it's a lot of blue chip accounts. So it's not so much just worrying about getting this job, it's the job after and the next one. But now while I'm on the phone with the art buyer, she knows, most of the art buyers are women, she knows that I've done a little bit of research. And I know that they have this account and they have that account. So I can say to them in that conversation that we start to have, did you guys do this work? Did you do that work? You know, I saw this on TV, I saw that. So you get more ingratiated in their world as it relates to, you understand the business. And if you understand their business, you understand what they're going through and working on this business and that business and all these different accounts. So you're thinking about the pro bono account, but you're thinking, God, I'd love to get a piece of Geek or Hess or Jeep, whatever it is, right? So having that conversation is really good. So now you start to think about the phone call. And you want to come from a position of strength as it relates to knowing your stuff. Like when you saw those ads, something has to scream out at you. And the first thing that screamed out at us was, we're going to need a Hollywood makeup person, because you have all these open cuts on all the models. So instantaneously, that's something that I have the producer recognize we need to go out and find a Hollywood makeup person. So that's one thing. But when I'm talking to the art buyer, now the art buyer understands, and this is really an important piece of it, they're doing 10 other jobs. This job is way down the pike. You're calling or you're emailing, you are nothing but an inconvenience at this particular time. And that's okay, as long as when you speak to them, you're asking pointed questions that make sense, that they can say, I don't really have a lot of time, what do you need? So at least you could start to be thinking about your estimate and about what you want to do. And if you've done a little bit of that research and she says, you know, I'm in the middle of this Nike project and I don't have the sneakers yet and we're shooting on Thursday, and you know, you can relate to that because you knew that they had Nike, or whatever the situation is, it's being part of her world to a certain degree. And think of it as a first date, you know, this call. You know, you don't want to say anything too dumb, you don't want to be too provocative, but you want to sound sexy, you want to sound like you know what's going on. And in the research that I just showed you of the website, you came up quickly that it's a West Coast ad agency, right? So that's something you have to think through and realize that's going to be an issue for us because we're here on the East Coast. So you get ready for the call, and I actually list out the questions that I want to ask, and I can go through this with an art buyer in a meandering type of a way in 2 or 3 minutes, because again, I recognize that they're busy and they don't want to talk to me, you know, generally. But if they have the time, they couldn't be nicer. So as it relates to this particular situation, I knew the art buyer and she knew me, but we had never worked together. It was only really her reputation and my name and reputation. We knew each other, you know, at parties and different things over the years. So we had like an instant respect for each other just from, you know, being around. So these are the questions, and I list them, but when I'm asking these questions, I ask the questions with a point of view, so that you're letting them know that you've been thinking about this and you're thinking in this manner, so that when that woman is speaking to 2 other people who are bidding this project, she's starting to see who's a pain in the neck, who knows their stuff, and who is totally in left field and has no clue. So I would ask the question, you know, we're thinking, you know, when do you want to shoot this? And if she said to me, well, we'd like to shoot maybe next week, I said, that's really not going to work. You know, we can't pull it together, you know, within a week, and I'll tell you why. we have to do this, we have to do casting, and on and on and on. In this particular case, they had plenty of time, so that wasn't an issue. But I can be able to say, and all of you have to, that's the other piece of this. You guys all have to be able to have these same type of conversations, not relying on a rep or somebody else. You have to be able to have these conversations in a very business-like manner, but also in a casual manner, because now this person is thinking, do I want to work with this photographer or this rep in a very intense situation for the next 2 weeks? Or is this person just going to aggravate me and it's just going to be too tedious? So you're now, having this first date, and you really want to portray yourself in such a way as, I'm an easygoing guy, I'll figure it out, we'll make this work, and I have some ideas. And some of my ideas is, if we're going to do the casting, what I'd really like to do, I'd like to do video casting. Because again, if you looked at those ads, you have to realize you have to direct those people. Those are not stand-up shots where someone just looks pretty in the camera or pensive. You need to get them to act. So that's a way, again, while you're asking those questions, you can put in your input. I think we should do video casting. And that's going to stand out for that person, recognizing that you guys are already thinking about how to do this job. And then, again, if she's busy, it may not even register, but it just might in that, wow, so-and-so is really thinking this through. And we realized also right away in one of those ads, the model's teeth were all yellow and black, so we're going to have to get a mold made for that person's teeth. That's going to take time. Where do we get that done? So that's something that my producer's already thinking about, right? So these are the things that, slowly are starting to, to move along. How many days shoot? I would think you do 2 in a day. 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon. And that's the way I would ask that question. How many days shoot are you thinking of doing this? Now, if they said to me, I think we can do this in a day, I said, I'm really not sure we can do that. There's a lot involved here, but let's talk about it. And I'm thinking, 2 days, 1 day, 2 days will make it really comfortable in doing it the right way. And if we want 4 completely different looks as it relates to the location, we're going to need 2 days to do that. And there's no reason to rush it through unless you have a crazy deadline. And they may say to you at that point, you know what, we don't have a big budget. I said, let's not worry about budget. Let's worry about getting, great work. So, that's another thing you have to sort of noodle. You find out the usage. Now, from my standpoint, the usage on this particular job doesn't matter. They could want to use these for 20 years. I'd be only happy to let them use them for 20 years because it's an important issue. It's going to be hopefully really powerful work, and my name is attached to it as a photographer or the rep or whatever it is. Let them use it for as long as they want. So, and they're doing a good thing. The agency is doing all this stuff for less money. The client is a pro bono account. So you say, let's not worry about the usage, at least from my head. The budget, we're going to find out how much money they have. Now that goes back to seeing the clients that they had on their list. They're working with Nikes, and they're working with Hess and Procter & Gamble. I have a feeling they're going to have some money for this because the client wouldn't come to an agency to do it on cheap if all their other clients are good clients, and the agency wouldn't take on the account if they weren't serious about producing this the right way. So, it's a two-way street, but it's recognizing that right off the top that there's going to be some kind of a budget for it. What type of files, do you want us to do researching, retouching, and what's involved there? When do you need the estimate? Again, that'll go to how buttoned up they are on their end. If she says to me, I need it tomorrow, I'm going to tell her, that may be a stretch. We'll try, but I need a couple of days because I need to find out what the Hollywood makeup person is going to charge, and is she really in Hollywood? Is she here? Is she she works on one of the TV studios here in the city doing special effects? And this is a special effects person. This isn't someone who does beautiful hair and makeup. This is someone who has to have a portfolio or a website of open cuts, working, sci-fi, all that kind of stuff, and really can do this for us, because that's really the key. And something you learn, and that's really the interesting thing, when you are working, it doesn't matter what the project is, you learn something about the product. And this product, you learn, and we learned this quickly, is that the reason why these kids have open cuts in their skin is because they have bugs inside them, and they're scratching to get them out. And they scratch so severely that they open the skin because they want to get all these things out of their body. So it's a pretty intense, so it's an intense project, and everything about it is serious, really serious. And you got to get it right. And one of the things, and then, you know, are we the first choice? You know, that's always a tough question, but you want to, you know, if you can ask it, in this case I could ask it, just to get a sense, you know, where are we in this process? And the other thing you want to find out is, how did they come to you? You know, what did you do in your marketing that worked? That's really important, because whatever that is, you want to duplicate it. But also, your marketing has worked. Now you want to close the deal. That's really, you know, you have to think of it, you know, in a very successful way. Out of all the photographers they picked to go through this process, they've come to you now, and now you've got to seize that moment. So that's, you know, you should sort of pat yourself on the back that something I'm doing is working. And if you can get that answer, that's great. And I want to know if we can speak to the creative team, because what I want to do is I want to get the photographer to talk to the creative director as soon as possible, so that they could start to build their relationship and get a sense of what's going on and what do you want to do, and I was thinking about shooting it this way and that, letting all that piece of it start. So you've made the call, and now you get your feedback. So they want to shoot somewhere in the next 2 weeks, sort of vague. The location could be New York or San Francisco, but it's location. They'd certainly want to shoot outside. They don't want to do this in the studio. They want to do real talent, not models at all. They agree with us with the video casting. We're going to need a Hollywood makeup person, and they want to see links, sites, the whole bit, books, because they recognize it. It's a really important, obviously a very important piece of it. They agree with us that it's a 2-day shoot. The usage is going to be 5 years, and like I say, that's fine with us. And the budget is $50,000, and that includes the talent. So having just what you have now gives you a lot of good information. $50,000, it's not the end of the world, but for a pro bono account, that's pretty good. You know, you're going to make some money. Who knows how much you're going to make, but you're going to make something on this, and they're going to use it, and you got to be happy about that. You know, because we've all done pro bono accounts where there's no money and you're doing it for credit, right? So this is one of those where we're going to get paid for it, and the files, the agency is going to do the retouching. That's fine. You need the estimate in 3 days. We'll make that happen. How many and who else is bidding? It's 5 photographers. So now the wind is totally out of your sails. There's 5 of us. It's not even 3 now, right? So now 5 people are going to be bidding on this. And if I tell you that, 2 of the photographers are in LA, right up the street from them. 1 is in San Francisco, in their backyard. That they've shot with, right? And 2 here in New York. So you get an idea of how you're feeling right now. Not really too good, because the odds are, the odds aren't so good. Are you the first choice? Where are we with the choice? Yeah, in the top 2 or 3. And they could say that to anybody. Nobody at this point is here or there, right? How did you come to us? It was a reference, and I don't really know. But you can't now. You're trying to get that information, but you can't belabor it. You can't be a pest now. The art buyer didn't know, or the art buyer is busy now. And yeah, the question's a good question, but I can't answer it. You got to let it go. So the idea now, and they don't want us speaking with the creatives just yet. They're busy doing TV or working on another shoot. So part of all of this now is you've had this conversation, and that art buyer is feeling you out, and they're getting a sense that you really know what you're doing, and you've asked good questions. You haven't been pestering. And your suggestions now have started to pave a way in their mind to get comfortable in shooting with you. In a very, very minimal way. You haven't done anything to stand out, and you're just moving along. So now what you do, you sort of you get your you sort of manage your expectations now. You've got this information, and for me those are really the highlights. You got a budget of $50,000. The usage is 5 years. The art buyer is first rate. She's giving me all the information I need, and I've got five of us bidding on this job. So it gives us a 20% chance. And like I said, 1 is in San Francisco, 2 in LA, and 2 in New York. So what I need to do now is have a conversation with the photographer, who's been involved in this. I don't know if some of you know Ron Haviv. He's a photojournalist. And for commercial work, we work together. So I have a conversation with Ron. This is where we are, and he's all in. He's all in completely. We want this job. And what we also found out for the Crystal Meth Project was the previous campaigns that they shot were too intense, where the young people who saw them said, that can't happen to me. It was too far over the top, right? So they wanted to come back, but not to the point where it's too easy, too clean. They wanted that space right in the middle. So learning that piece of it is really important as it relates to the type of links you send them for the makeup person, right? Because you don't want somebody who only does gore. And there's real breakdowns of all of these different makeup people that go from here to here. So whatever you send them is really a reflection of what you think these should look like. So you can't just haphazardly send all these model makeup persons books that don't really relate, because now it says that you think this is gore or this is really just a small little cut. So you've got to do the research now, and I have the producer already looking for these makeup people. So that's part of the thinking around this. And my other challenge is really the 5 photographers. What are we going to do here? What can we do to get, and that's really the key, is to get the creative team from San Francisco and an account executive and the client on a plane to shoot with us, right? Losing the days in the office when they could shoot with a guy they shot with in their own city, and the makeup person is down the street in LA, right? So that's really the dilemma. So you have your estimate, and these are where I'm going to go. We're going to shoot in New York City. We're going to get the Hollywood makeup artist to come to us, and I'm going to work backwards on the $50K. So, like any standard estimate, these are my columns. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to have a producer, my assistants, hair and makeup, the wardrobe prop stylist, just for the teeth. The wardrobe expenses are going to be minimal, because you saw what that was. But there's going to be some props because we need some beds, and we need a deck of chairs, and we need some shelving. And it's all nuanced in the shots. You don't really see them, but you need to have it there, just in case it becomes more of the shot. The location, it's got to be a rundown building, and it's got to be a place where, and this is what, so now part of your vision is coming through on this estimate, because you're thinking it's going to be a rundown building and it's got to be gritty, but we can't be going to the South Bronx and not be safe. You're bringing a client, you're bringing the ad agency, you've got to find a place that is controlled but run down. All right? Again, that's why you have, and if you don't have a producer, that's fine. You've got other photographer friends, you got the APA, you got ASMP. There's a lot of different places to use to get that resource. Turns out that we ended up finding, the producer found Fort Totten in Queens. It's an old abandoned base that now the fire department practices scuba diving off the water there. I mean, go no, right? But she knew. Right? And you make a donation of $1,000 and you have the location. For 2 days, it's a gated area. So you got to have an RV there. right? Because people have to sit, they have to eat, they have to change, they have to do makeup, all this other stuff. So that's why you have the RV in there. So again, you know, it's a low budget type of a project, but you're now thinking again of not this job, but the job after and the job after that. You want to make sure that those creative directors and those writers and the account executive and the client has a comfortable, nice experience of shooting with you. Because no one's going to think, you know, 2 months later, oh, you know, those ads were great and this and that. They're going to think, I had no place to go to the bathroom. The food was terrible. We had to eat pizza that was cold. You know, all that other stuff. That can't happen. You know, the experience still has to be top notch. So you move on from there and you're doing your preliminary numbers. So I find out, and now, you know, you're still communicating with the art buyer, and you find out that the agency has a makeup person. Great. That they, you know, they want to recommend, let's use them, and I don't even have to put her expenses of coming to the city on my estimate. And that's great. The teeth will be made for one single person from the casting, right? So we only need a mold of one person. The creatives want to come to the shoot, and the agency is constantly giving me more information. So the more, I always feel like the more that you're communicating and they're giving you that information, you know you're getting on, you know, you're on that treadmill and it's going a little bit faster, and they're thinking about you as one of the possible candidates. So from there, you put together your numbers. And these are pretty basic numbers, and you can say, you know, this is high or this is low. The only place that I won't take any numbers down are my assistants. Assistants don't make enough money anyway that, you know, I never cut their rates. But I could say to the producer, you've got to be a little bit lower, or the makeup person, or the hair person. Any one of those categories, I'm totally fine with, you know, you got to work with us. And most people in this, you know, for working on this type of a project are going to jump right on board. So the thing that I wanted to just bring to your attention, I've been here now for a half hour. This is the first time you've seen numbers. So much of this process is this connection that you're making with your client, with your art buyer, with the art director, all of that. So keep in mind that, you know, these conversations that I'm having with the art buyer, with the editor, or whatever, whichever area you're in, is really about connecting. That you guys are starting to see the world in the same way, right? And, you know, and that's fine. You know, will it lead to the job? You know, no one really knows. So this would be a good time if you have questions. That's a great question. The question is, do we make the idea of going to shoot out in San Francisco? The reason why we thought we wanted to be here for this discussion was that we're closer to home and our expenses will be lower than bringing everybody out there. And you have a little bit more touch than, you know, places you don't know.
If they had balked at that, though, would you have?
Well, then we could have thought, yeah, let's do that. Because that was, you know, maybe there's somewhere near Alcatraz that we could shoot. Or here, and you're probably right, but the key was you had the 50,000. So if you had the 50,000, it's now, and you look at the numbers, you say, okay, to go to LA, it maybe gets us just below 50. Here it's, you know, whatever it is. But if you didn't have the number, then it changes the equation, right? Because, and I'll get into the number thing as well. Gentleman with the hat.
Doesn't the travel to the West Coast also play into your 50 number? In other words, that's less of the pie you have to work with?
Right. I mean, whatever your expenses are, they are. But again, in this case, you know, my personal opinion is, and the photographer feels the same, we're not really worried about how much money we make on the back end. We want the job.
Yeah,
right.
Because it's pro bono.
Right. So if my expenses are 30 versus 35, I really don't care. I want to get the ads, right? But your point is right, that, you know, whatever we spend is coming out of the pot, right? So you watch what you spend, but you never sacrifice the production of what you know of the project, because that reads in a second.
Right. The quality.
Anybody else? Okay. All right. So now, the one thing that's important from this standpoint is that everyone knows the number is 50. So all the numbers are going to come in 48, 52, somewhere in that range. If you come in at 60, you're really not listening. right? And if you come in at 30, you're a dope. You know, you're not putting enough into the production, right? So you have to, you know, watch that. Coming too low and coming too high is just as dopey. So what I like to do is, and I do this, you know, with all the photographers, is creative separation. What can you do to separate yourself from these other 4 guys? And then remember, I got to get those guys on a plane from San Francisco here for 3 or 4 days. So what can we do to just stand out a little bit? And remember, these are your ads. You know, this is pretty intense, right? So, and it's crystal meth. I mean, whatever we've read now, and whatever we know about this drug, is really bad. And you know, most people don't get off it, and the circumstances around it for a long time for every family is a horror show. It's absolutely horror, right? So what I suggested to Ron is to write a creative brief, and it's this beautiful unfiltered statement that you can put to paper, and it's a paragraph. It's 2 paragraphs tops about how you're going to shoot this and why it's important for you to shoot it. Now, you may have a family member, or you may have a neighbor's kid who was affected by it, or you read an article in the Times. If you cannot put together 2 paragraphs, paragraph and a half, on why this is important that you shoot it and how you would shoot it, you should be doing something else. Because nothing could be more passionate, you know, and nothing should drive you into your gut this, you know, of putting that, you know, why this is important, why you want your name attached to something that can really, hopefully, keep 1, 2, 10 kids off this drug, right? So that's, you know, that's something that you have to put to paper, right? And you know, these kids are really, really suffering. You know, I mean, and this is the young girl who we were going to make the teeth for. It turned out you don't see much of it, but her face is, you know, her mouth is a little bit swollen. So, you know, I'm talking to Ron, and you know, the numbers came in, I don't know, 48, 49, whatever it was. But what else can we do? You know, what else is going to be the thing? Because somebody else probably is going to write a creative brief as well. And it may not be in the term of a creative brief, but there may be a statement. You know, here's our estimate. I'm really interested in doing it. You know, so-and-so of my family has had this, on and on and on. So that almost equals the playing field. And again, everyone knows the number, it's 50, right? So what, again, is going to be the next separation? And I'm talking to Ron, and then it hit me. What we should do is put in for a drug consultant. Who better to speak about this drug than a former addict? Somebody who can say, you're desperate, you have nothing, you're going nowhere, your life is over, you're stealing from your parents, your grandparents, you're taking earrings out of your little niece's ears to sell them for this drug. Who else? I mean, you could read this, you know, in their creative brief, you can do 1,000 different things, but somebody looking you square in the face and telling you, this is what it is. This is the desperation you feel. It's invaluable. It's absolutely invaluable. So we put that in the estimate. And what I did was I highlighted it just like this. And I put in for 2 days, $500, came to $1,000. Now again, to your point there, that comes out of our fee. That extra $1,000 that nobody else put in was something that, you know, if you're just thinking from a numbers standpoint, that, you know, that came out of our pocket. So what? You know, you had to do something. Again, you got to get those guys on that plane, San Francisco to here. And you know, if you added all these numbers, I think it's just about 50, maybe a little bit under 50. But you know, we felt it was important. So I send in the estimate, and instantaneously they call me. What's up with the drug consultant? You know, why do you want that in there? So I said, I think it's important, and I did the same thing. I think it's important for someone to be there to direct the talent and to direct the photographer, to let them know what it really feels like, right? And they said to me, well, and they were thinking it from a money standpoint. Well, what happens if we have somebody from the client come? I said, I think that's great, but again, now this is how you're estimating, and you're talking from a standpoint of strength. You're saying that's all fine and good, but I really believe we should have somebody who's a recovering addict. So she knew that was sort of my line in the sand. But so I made myself vulnerable in that spot, but it seemed like the right thing to do to separate ourselves from all the other estimates. Because again, all the other estimates are going to be the same numbers. This is not, you're not winning this job by numbers. No one's going to win this job by numbers. So you submit the bill, you submit your estimate, but what happens is on the back end, the deadlines for insertions, it's not changing. That's staying the same, right? So you have to keep on doing your work, and nothing has been approved. So the producer has got a half a dozen people on hold. The locations, the assistants, the caterer, the Winnebago, all that stuff is all just waiting. But that's the nature of our business. Everyone knows that that's how it goes, and you deal with it. But so you're ready. You're ready to move if it happens, and then you wait. You call your mother, Ma, go say a couple of prayers. You tell everyone, do this, and you just wait and you wait and you wait. And now part of doing this is not nagging the art buyer, because the art buyer knows that you're waiting. Everyone's waiting, right? But what you hope through this process that you've again separated yourself from the crowd of the other 4 photographers in some way, so you're sort of making it difficult for them to not pick you. That's sort of the game. So anyone have any questions now?
You picked up on something, at least I perceived you did, because you're putting a consultant in. I heard you mention earlier that they were saying the original product was over the top. So now the question becomes, how do you judge just where does it belong?
Well, I don't understand. What do you mean over the top?
They said that the original stuff was too strong, that the ads were scaring the
Oh,
kids.
right, okay.
They were just, they were inconceivable. They got to the point where they were plastic.
Right.
And I got the impression right now, from listening to you, that you actually picked up on that, maybe subliminally, but you picked up on that, and that seems to be where that consultant comes from.
Well,
is that the sort of thing you're talking about?
I never thought of it in that way, but and even now I'm not sure if it connects, but I think that point is absolutely right. That you got something from these conversations that may be triggered. That we don't want to go over the top, but we need to understand the passion with which these kids are suffering. That's really what but you didn't want to convey it in a way that was unbelievable to little Johnny and little Sally in Wyoming. And that's the interesting thing. That's the first place where these ads ran, in Wyoming. Because the old story that half the drug problem is in the cities, where the other half is, it's out in the suburbs where kids have nothing to do. And so you start to learn that, and again, that becomes part of the conversation that you have with your art buyer as you're doing this estimate. So you're sort of feeding this little tiger there, where they're seeing that you're getting it. You're listening. It's not just another job. You're getting to the minutia of it, so that you can feel what they're feeling. Yep.
When the question comes up about the drug consultant, you could say, "It's my dime. I feel more comfortable, and I'm happy to pay for it out of our fee." Why would it be an issue?
It's not. You're absolutely right. Why? So the question is, why would we put it in, and why would they even think about it? They were more curious why it was in, because nobody else had done that. And they know that that's coming out of our fee. It's like, I don't have to say it, because I still know that my number is going to be, in that 4852 number. I'm not saying, and this is an overage. Right. I'm laying all my cards out now.
It's value added.
Right. It's a win-win for me. I'm making myself vulnerable. If I don't get the job, at least I can say, you know what, we really thought this out. We didn't get it, but we thought it out.
If you, now you put in an extra item, in this case the drug consultant, or it might have been something else depending on the job, and it puts you a little over the estimate. Do you feel that at that point you want to maybe start talking to your producer and saying, take a little bit less or something to do this to try to get it down? I mean,
Well,
How finicky are you with that amount, and you want to come in a little bit lower?
right. I want to come in under 50. So if I have to take the hit on the fee, the creative fee, so what would happen is if I had submitted this and then came up with the idea of the consultant, I would then redo my estimate with the $1,000 in, and I would take the $1,000 off the fee, showing that I still need this, I still need that RV. I still need to do the video casting. I still need my assistants. I still need all of those things. I'm not going to shortchange you from the production standpoint because I feel committed about this consultant. So, what does that do? That just shows them you're really dedicated to this, right? Because then, if all of a sudden you took $1,000 off here and there, and you know, it shows less of a commitment. Here, listen, you'll get the estimate in about 3 minutes. I'm going to put the $1,000 in. You'll see $1,000 less on the fee. I really believe in this consultant thing. So it's like a big fat curveball. It comes in and you nail it. You hit it right out of the ballpark. It's a beautiful thing. Any other questions?
Yeah, along the same line of the sit and wait question. Now you wait 2 weeks, you wait 3 weeks, and all of a sudden they come back with you already scheduled, and they say they have to have it in this time frame.
Okay, so in this particular case, I knew it wasn't going to be a 3-week wait, a 2-week wait. I knew we were going to know in 2 days, or a day. It was going to be quick. And that was part of early on. I mentioned to you how professional the art buyer was. So she's on top of this now, right? And there is a deadline, with insertion orders and all of those things. So they're forced now to sit down with the client, and the client is committed. This isn't like Pepsi where there's 16 different divisions. This is the one division with the one client with 2 assistants, and they have to decide. They are the account. So you don't have these layers that you have to worry about as in some other cases. So you know if they're having the meeting on Tuesday or Wednesday, by Thursday we're going to know. And you wait. And all you can do is wait. There's nothing. There's nothing around that. Do you give a call? Yeah, you can give a call. Yeah, maybe one call. Just anything happened? Did you hear anything? Did something change? And that art buyer at that point is feeling your pain as well because she wants to get going with it also. So it's perfectly fine to ask and give a call a day or 2 later. But it usually doesn't go 3 weeks. So we win the bid. Right? And now we got a producer. So the producer was already contacted. She's now on the phone. It's a go, it's a go, it's a go. Everyone's doing this. We're casting on Wednesday. We're going to have the website set up where we drop all the casting into a site. And the client is looking at it already, 1 day after, we've already shot it. And everything is in motion, and it's all good. And now you ask, why do you win? Right? And there's a number of reasons why we thought we won that job, and we created, I believe we created that separation. We made ourselves, we put ourselves in a place where we were just a little bit different, a little bit more creative, a little bit more sympathetic, a little bit more touch. And that's, and like I said in the beginning, it's less about the numbers than it is about connecting. And that, that's something that you have to think about. And, but another part of that for us is that, you put your head on the pillow because, you do a ton of these estimates and you don't get the jobs, right? But if you could put your head on the pillow at night and say, I did everything I could and I did a little bit more. So you can't say I should have, I could have, right? We said, here's everything. We're giving you this, we're doing this, we're doing that. And, if we get the job, we get the job. If we don't, we don't. But, there's no second guessing. And, in anything that we do, if you don't have the possibility to second guess yourself, that's a pretty good spot to be in. That you were all in. And, we won a couple of awards and, all kinds of different things. And that was, at the end, this was our self-interest. We wanted this. We wanted our name attached to that. We made some money. It wasn't a bad job, but better than that, if somewhere again with your head on the pillow that 1 or 2 kids didn't get into this drug, what's wrong with that? So, any questions?
Let's let's say you got the job, you did it, you shot it, they're happy and everything, do you go back to the art buyer and say, well, what did we do differently? Why did we win? If you didn't win, do you go back to them and say, why didn't we win?
Here's a planned. That is a planned question. So, two days after our shoot, one of the highlights of my business career, I swear to you, they call us up, and the art buyer calls me and says, Frank, I need a favor. I need the name of the drug consultant. We want him on the TV shoot. Who's shooting the TV shoot? The guy who directed Black Swan. So here's this big-time director. They never thought of it. So our guy goes over to the TV shoot and works with them for 3 or 4 days doing the same thing that we did. So there's the answer to that question, right? Yeah, it's just, and you can't make it up. I mean, if I tried to make up this case study, I couldn't do it. You wouldn't believe it. But that, I mean, every piece of this is fact.
Did they mention that was one of the reasons they chose you?
They never said, Frank, this is the reason why you got the job. They never said that. But from the things that had happened and being on the shoot and they're saying, you know, Frank, that was a great idea. They never said, you know, that's the reason you got the job. They said, you know, that was a great thing. You were very easy to work with. And that's, you know, from a rep standpoint, from a photographer standpoint, that's all you want to hear.
What do you do when the budget is much more vague, there's a real sense of urgency in trying to get this estimate, there are answers that just aren't coming, or they're not being forth? How do you deal with that more resistant situation?
Yeah, you know, that always is a huge headache. But what I find is, and more is when you're in one of those situations, there's a moment where all of a sudden they're talking to you more, and now you know you're on that track. Just because you're there. I mean, I wish I had the answer in a definitive way. You know, they're not calling you back, or you know, the only place where I can find comfort in that is I've worked for an ad agency, and I know, and all of us have worked, you know, doing our jobs with ad agencies. It's chaotic on the other side. And they're doing 4 or 5, 6 other projects, and somebody needs this estimate. And I mean, and it's crazy. They've got 3 bids for every single project. I mean, imagine this woman. She's got 5 bids for this project. I mean, everyone is crazy. So it's almost like you need to, you know, I guess, manage your expectations that, all right, this is the way it's going to be, but what can I do just to stay close enough to it that you're not on the outside and without being a pest? You know, that's really, you know, the sports car moment, right? Is just to be in there, and there are different things that you can do. You know, whether it's another call, whether it's another email, whether it's sending something. You know, I saw, you know, thanks for the layouts, and you know, you could send them something, you know, a quick test or an image that you got from your archive. You know, just something to get the hook a little bit. It's horribly frustrating, that piece of it, because you know, you're on the island and no one's seeing your SOS, right? And all you want to do is be saved, or all you want to do is be shot. Then just kill me so I'm not involved anymore, and that would alleviate it as well, right? So the next one we're going to do is this shot, and this is for British Airways, and they won another award for their cheese on their planes. So, and this is something I just pulled out of a magazine. I thought it was interesting and something different. So when the day is over, it's a still life on white. But there's a lot beyond this. So what I want to do is I want to learn a little bit. So what I did was, for fun, for this exercise, is I went to British Airways website and I looked to see all their awards. So now, when I go and I talk to that art buyer, I can talk to the fact that British Airways has won all these awards over the years for their wine, for their cheese, for their large seat, for, I mean, all these cockamamie, they must own the award show themselves, right? I mean, it's so much silliness, but you know, that's what British Airways is about. So I also find out that they're at Ogilvy. So now your ears perk up. Everything, you know, now it's interesting. So again, because I want this job, but I want the job after that, and I want to become friendly, more friendly with the art buyers at Ogilvy and Mather, right? So this job is certainly going to be an aggravating job, because we got to find out, we got to get wheels of cheese, you know, to create, you know, this big thing. And you know, it's all going to be aggravating, it's all going to be frustrating, but it's, again, you're going to prove to this art buyer you guys can pull it together. You're going to find the prop maker who works in cheese, right? Who can show a portfolio of these etchings, you know, out of cheese. So, you know, first thing, you know, the prop maker, again, you know, I'm going to get to my producer. You know, what's involved? Who can create this? Because not every model maker can do this. You know, some model makers you know, don't work in this. You know, they only build things, or you know, there's Crystal Holloway, or the Manhattan Model Shop, all these different people that you can use. So you start to, you know, you find out, you know, who is the right person to do this. But at the same time, again, this is all before your phone call, right? You're creating a prop list, right? And remember, estimating is about the next job. It's not just about this one, right? So I'm putting together my prop list, and I'm thinking of a glass of wine, I'm thinking of olives, Coke, you know, something to make that shot a little bit more interesting. So when I'm on the phone with the art buyer, who, again, remember, is inundated with other jobs, especially at Ogilvy, they're not doing too many pro bono works. They're working on big time stuff all the time. You know, someone there, an art buyer, could be working on 15 projects at a time, and then, you know, each one coming and going, and you know, one's more intense than the other. So, you know, that's something that, again, you have to be sensitive to. So I come up with this, you know, pretty basic prop list, and you know, I've got my photographer interested, and my photographer really, from that standpoint, is just looking at this as a still life, because the prop is going to come to the studio, it's going to put it in, light it, and it's a still life shot, right? The question is, what are the, you know, where do these other props fit in? And maybe they do, maybe they don't. So I get some feedback from the prop maker. He feels that you got to work in an actual size. You can't do this in miniature to create that turbine of the engine. You need something bigger. So we need a wheel of cheese. They're 12, 18 inches thick. He needs 3 of them because they could break while you're doing it. You're going to need a heavy-duty fridge. He needs 4 days to complete. Provolone is the only cheese that's going to work. It's a hard workable material. And what the prop maker wants, he wants to know for sure that the ad agency is going to send somebody every day to see his progress, so that he knows he's going in the right direction. So again, you're having these conversations with the art buyer, but you're thinking in a creative, practical way. You're not just thinking the prop, you're thinking how it's going to relate to this project. So again, that art buyer is saying, wow, Michael's really thinking this thing through. You're really thinking how, you know, this whole thing should come to pass. So, and that may be something that they weren't thinking about. And you know, the guy says, listen, I don't want to just send you a digital file each day. I want you to come to my studio for an hour and let me just show you what I'm doing. And do you want this? Do you want that? Because, I mean, all of it is just nuance. I mean, what does one of those turbine things look like, right? And, you know, all the things around that. But we find out that this is what the prop maker wants to charge. To create 2 of those engines, it's going to be $5,500. The materials, the cheeses, each wheel is $3,700. You're going to need an industrial fridge to ship the day of the shoot. Just to ship it from studio to studio is going to be $300. And if you want the prop maker on the set, it's another $1,500 for an 8-hour day. Because, you know, something chips, or you want to do this, or you want to do that, you know, who knows? It's probably a good investment to do that, you know, to have the guy there. Because you're going to be spending who knows how much money on these, you know, on this. Wouldn't it be great to have that guy there instead of, you know, finding out that he's not even in town and you want to do something to the cheese, right? You know, so these are the things to you have to consider. And again, this is part of the estimating process. You know, it's really important to think these things through, so that art buyer is saying, you get it. You get it when somebody else isn't getting it, right? That's really the significant thing there. So you call up and you find out, the client is a busy client. The cheese needs to be aged a certain period of time. You have 2 weeks to shoot. They don't want any of those other little props. That little glass of wine, which would have looked nice and gave it a little atmosphere. They don't want anything. They just want it seamless. The prop maker, we're still deciding who that's going to be, and the usage is 3 years. 3 years worldwide for that shot. So, you have all this information, and you're moving. Again, your producer is doing this research for you, or your studio manager, whomever it is, or yourself. But again, you're having these conversations, and the way you present yourself in that conversation is invaluable to this process. That you're figuring things out for them. You're giving them ideas. You're telling them, we need to do this, we need to do that. While that person is so busy, it's nice to know in their mind, Michael Smith is really thinking this thing through. So it's almost like they're the ace in the hole. That she's working on 6 other projects, but she knows this one is it's moving along. I've been speaking to this one person, and he really knows, what he's doing. So the usage, right? This is the issue that everyone has. What do you charge for different things? So it's really a timeless image, right? You could use that now, and you could use it 2 years from now. And airlines have new routes, and they want to promote it for the wines or the cheeses on the planes. So that's an issue that gives life to that particular image. So you have to be thinking in that way that they could use this. They could use this a lot, and that's really the reality of it. So you have to be thinking, what is that worth? And here's your shot again. I tell you, when you talk so much, you can get so thirsty. So there's a lot of detail in that, but what's nice about it that I like is that it's not totally smooth. I mean, you see the cuttings there, and they made it like the real thing, but they didn't. For me, they could have had a little bit of character. Maybe there was some cheese, droppings there at the bottom there, or that little glass of wine, or something. But this is what they wanted, and I'm the last person in the world to be an art director. So this is what I thought it would go for. The shoot fee, $4,500, a prep fee of $2,500, because the photographer is going back and forth to the prop maker all week as well. Making sure it's right, because the photographer needs to be part of that process, which again makes you engaging into the process, which then tells the art. So then I'm the rep, and I'm calling the art buyer. Yeah, Michael was just over there. He was just over there. The progress is going really well. He met with the creative director over there, which is all great, because it's just getting you closer and closer to this client, right? I mean, it's a perfect experience for the for you as the rep and you as the photographer. So I would do $4,500, and if they bought it all now, I'd give them a deal of $11,500 for the 3-year usage, right? Yep.
You had as a line item in there, merge with another airline. And that is always something that confuses me on usage on a licensing agreement. If they do merge, and you've been doing a lot of work for them, and you're going to take that whole library and it goes to a new company and you get no compensation, how do you work that out?
Well, each one is different, and I am sure, I would bet you nowadays somewhere in the contract, in the purchase order, there is something that you would never read,
right,
that says if we merge, it then becomes property of the other company. Now I would assume if British Airways would merge with United and it became United, you'd probably have an argument that you shot it for British Airways. But again, you'd have to read the fine print to know. But maybe on your invoice for that, this is for British Airways only, right?
No, I was just curious about the $4,500 per year. It totaled up to $11,500, and you said.
Right. Well, what I was doing is, again, part of the estimating to show that you'll give them a deal. Because if they were thinking for, maybe we only need it for 1 or 2 years, you would say, okay, you know, if you only do it for 1 or 2 years, it's $4,500 a year. But if you do the 3 years now, we'll give you a break at 11,500.
Oh, okay.
You know, just as a gesture. Anyone else? Yep.
Talking about usage and time. After the 3 years are, you know,
Over.
What do you do? Follow up with them? Do they follow up with you?
Well, this is what everyone should do. You should have in your computer, shot this, the usage ends, and then 3 months before it's up, you send a little note, call the op buyer. Remember that ad we did for British Airways? And you may find out that now British Airways is at another agency, right? And then you have to send that letter to that ad agency or directly to the client. Say, you know, your usage is up for 3 years, and what may happen, they may just buy it again because they don't want anyone to use it. But I don't know many people that do that, you know, many studios that do that follow-up. But that's a great, great question. You know, to have that in your computer, on your calendar, usage is up for here. And then, you know, you just give them a call. You know, you never know. But I have to tell you one quick story. We once did an ad for Northwest Airlines, photographer Joe Toto, may he rest in peace. We shot it for the Mullen Agency, or the Fallon in Minneapolis. And by the time 2 or 3 years had gone by, it had jumped to 3 different agencies. And then we saw it in Moline, Illinois, at a small airline where the entire reception is no bigger than this space here, and it was still up, and they had no rights to it. And Joe Toto at the time was, you know, sort of done with his career and he hated the whole world, would not budge from $25,000 for the illegal usage. And I happen to be in Moline, don't ask why, but I'm in Moline and I see it. And I call him, I said, you know, Joe, and I leave him a message, you know, Joe, I see this ad here. I'm almost positive they didn't buy this for 3 years. That was probably the most embarrassing thing for me as the rep, to have to call. And I said, listen, you have no negotiating position. This is what this guy wants. If you don't get it, he's going to, you know, make it 50 and not stop. And so they just paid a check for $25,000. I mean, it's like crazy. But I digress. That's a good usage story. So always, you know, make sure, you know, where your images are in the times. So I have a question again. How many of you have images at stock houses? Okay, so just to give you an illustration, that's a cheese shot. And this is from Getty. That cheese shot is $3,600. Same usage for the British Air, for the ad we did. So if somebody says, why don't we use the stock shot? They just saved themselves $30,000, right? So to your question about usage and rights and all these other things, for now, $3,000, $3,600, they can have that cheese shot. I only illustrate this to you. Get all your stuff out of the stock agencies. You're putting yourselves out of business. And when I did this was a 2-minute search, absolutely a 2-minute search for a cheese shot. And there was maybe 1,000 cheese shots. And I just picked this one. They had wheels, they had this, they had that. It wasn't exactly, you know, the shot that we were looking for, but you can imagine some young account executive, somebody on the client side, you know, we don't have a lot of time. And the client saying, well, what's wrong with that shot? You know, they saw it in the layout. Let's use that shot. And then it's all gone. So when everyone's talking about how much to charge for usage and all these other things, this is your competition. This is where your estimates are being valued against. So it's really dangerous stuff. So you have to think, you're putting yourselves out of business, and you're using, you know, I mean, and I'm sure this happens where somebody is bidding against themselves on a stock image and they don't even know it. It happened to be a shot that they took that's up at Corbis or wherever, you know, whatever stock agency. So it's something to think about, and that is part of the, you know, that's the other elephant in that estimating process that you guys are dealing with, is that, you know, they know that they can get almost any shot out of stock. So you have to think about that the ramifications of something like that. Any other questions?
How do you come up with that particular figure based upon, I mean, what are your criteria for evaluating it? Is that a standard, or if you anticipate they're going to use it for A, B, and C purposes? What's the consideration?
That's a great question. Part of it is, could they buy that shot in stock? What do you think the real value of? It's a gut call because, and it's really a good question. What is it worth? Because somebody could be standing here and telling you you should get $12,000 for that shot for a year, $20,000, $4,000, $3,000. It's all about what do you think you can get for it without them going away. Where your estimate is really through the ceiling because of the usage fee. That's a 6-hour conversation, because and part of the argument is you're shooting that, right? You're shooting the cheese shot, and now they want to pay you $4,000 for that shot. They are now going to spend $2 million on magazine placement for that ad. Is that fair? That's probably not fair. But that's the photography industry. Now, if you want to charge them $25,000 for that, and you're the only guy that can do it, Zeigersund, over. You get the money. That's great. But unfortunately, there's too many photographers who can do a beautiful still life shot like that. That's really the thing. It's reality. And then you have the piece of the stock agencies. So you can charge whatever you want. Will somebody pay for it? Right? I mean, and you could push it as far as you want. But if you've now worked for that agency a half a dozen times, because you did those ads and you did this ad and you did that ad, you can say to the art buyer, what do you think I can charge for this? Because you've now become a little bit of a partner with her. And you've helped her out in this case, and you've helped her out in that case. She'll tell you, 45 is too low. I'm sure I can get it through for 6,000. Because she knows what her retouching is going to cost. She knows this. She knows the other cost. So she's willing to do you a favor and say, you can charge a little bit more. Or she'll say, you got to come down less because the third bid on this was really low. I don't want you to lose the job, but you're going to have to make it $3,500. So it's hard to tell you what it's worth. Like a Coke bottle. A Coke bottle is never going to change. So, and they could use that, if they buy that out, they could use it for who knows how many years, where fashions will change. So there's less of, it's 6 of these, half a dozen of another. It's hard to say, but it's something that you have to have a feel for. And if you've done all the other homework in that estimate and you've ingratiated yourself with the art buyer, more times than not, if they want to use you, they'll tell you, Michael, your numbers are dead on right. Michael, you're a little bit high. You need to come down $1,500 or $2,000 on the whole thing, and then you do it. So it's the estimating piece is about the connecting and about the relationship, because there are no hard, fast rules to go by. Because if there were, then we could all just boilerplate it in, but it's not. And there's always somebody. There's probably the 70 of us here. There's 68 people here that would undercut you, just for fun. All right, so this is for Embassy Suites, and it's you're shooting it at probably one of their hotels, and you have the oversized. The whole idea is that it's about more. They give you more at Embassy Suites, more croissants, more coffee, more food, more bagels in the morning, everything to make us all fat, right? So that they're giving you all this stuff. So what I did was, again, it wasn't something that I worked on, but I did a little bit of research and I found out that it's BBDO out of Atlanta who has this account. So as you're reading it, you see they have a lot of good accounts, right? And I want to get that business. Right? So again, I haven't spoken to anybody there. I just got the layouts, and like these things here for AT&T, they were all over Penn Station with, you know, with the hands. They were just great. I mean, and I have to say, I was a little bit piggish in that I can't believe that an Atlanta agency did that. I mean, that's so stupid of me. But they were great. They were all over the place. And this is another one for Embassy Suites, so you can see they give you more bagels and they give you more, you know, all that stuff. So, again, you know, we haven't made the call, but now we know, you know, they're working for AT&T, they're working for Embassy Suites, Georgia Lottery, and you know, they're doing a lot of national ads, and you know, they've come to you to do this. So what's nice about it, you realize that your marketing efforts are working, and now you have to close this deal, right? Because now, you know, an agency out of Atlanta is calling you. And if you're in Atlanta, that's great. But either way, you know, something is working in what you're doing. You know, whether you're in Black Book or Workbook or here or there, Archive, you know, you're doing something right. So you have to take it sort of as a, like a course. I'm going to close this. I'm going to make this happen. I'm doing, you know, I'm doing a lot of things right. And you've done your research with the agency. So you start thinking about the call, your talking points, you know, what's the timing, the props. Now, you saw the coffee cup and the saucer. Do they want to do other things? You know, like an oversized newspaper. You know, is the table, you know, an oversized chair? You know, you've seen all those sort of campy kind of things. So what you're doing is you're saying, I'm thinking this through, and you know, these are the other things that, you know, we can have enlarged products made. So when you speak to the art buyer, you're thinking, you know, you're trying to be cagey. You're trying to let her know that, you know, you're thinking about this project. You've seen other work that they do. So when you get into that conversation with them, you know, you can say, you know, I saw that AT&T work. Again, you know, you now are getting a feel for that ad agency, and they're feeling for you that this guy cares about his work. You know, when he cares about the process and he's part of the industry, it's not just going to be a one-off. So it just, you know, it's just a nice way to become, you know, closer to her and come up with ideas and find out maybe that's something they hadn't thought about, and that could really work, right? So you have your issues. You know, what's the timing? That's to be decided. The campaign it's all about more. The prop list is coming. The location is supplied by the client, right? Because it's Embassy Suites, and it's a new client for them. It's first time. So the piece here, you find out that, you know, all they really want is the soup, the saucer, the cup, and in post they're going to put some steam coming out of that coffee, and they want it eggshell white. And you know, your prop maker finds out that it's going to take 5 or 6 days to put this together. So the other issue is the location. And I took this because I had made a big mistake years ago shooting for Sheraton hotels. I put together the estimate, and it never dawned on me that we can't shoot during the day because everyone's in there. You can't inconvenience the customers. So I put together the estimate, and you know, the photographer didn't register. It didn't register with the art buyer. Didn't register with anybody. And you know, it's one of your war wounds. And we had to shoot in the city, but we had to shoot in the middle of the night, like from 8 in the evening to 3 in the morning. It's the most quiet time for a hotel, especially here in the city. And so now I'm into overtime with the assistants, and this agency, I'm pretty sure it was BBDO, didn't want to hear a thing about overtime. You submitted the estimate, and I can't go back to the client. That's on you. And you know, and it's rare when, you know, you've made a mistake like that. I mean, it's a mistake. It's more of like, is it a mistake? I hate to think I made another mistake. It's a mistake, but you know, it's not like you forgot something, right? You just like it didn't dawn on you that the hotel owner would not let you shoot during the day. But if you really thought it through, you would say, "What am I going to shoot? Where am I shooting this? How can I shoot this? You know, from 8 a.m. to 3 o'clock in the afternoon in a New York City hotel. I mean, who wants to disrupt all the client, the customers, and on and on and on. So, but in this case, the client supplied, and I actually called BBDO, and I spoke to the art buyer who worked on this project. So I said, give me some nuggets, about what happened and this and that. And as it turned out, they shot it in LA, and it was a big enough place that they were able to block it off, and they weren't interfering with the customers. But, that's again something, so if you ever get a hotel job, right, mention to them, are we shooting during the day or are we shooting in the evening, because we don't want to disrupt the customers. Even if you know the answer, it says to the art buyer, you're thinking. You're out. In my case, I wasn't thinking, right? But now that's the trick. That, if you shoot it in some type of public place, we're going to do this. We're going to shoot at night. So what is the value of the image? So is it timeless? It's probably not, because fashions change. And you can't be running that 5, 7, 10 years from now. It'll look dated. And as far as merging, you put it in for a single use only. They don't have a large budget, and the fashions have changed, which is sort of your safety net. So there's only so much of a value to this image, right? I mean, and all those people there were talent. They actually casted for all of those people. None of it was staff or crew or anything like that. But it was a brand new hotel. The guy Chris Berter, I think his last name was. So here's your creative separation moment, and that's what I was telling you. It's the space and the talent availability. Shoot when no one's in the space. There may be overtime for the crew, overtime for models. Do you shoot on the weekend? Do we shoot somewhere in New York, like out in New Jersey or Connecticut or Long Island, in one of those industrial centers where they have the hotel like off Route 18 in the middle of nowhere, and it's only because that hotel's only there for the companies that are just around there, where people coming in from out of town. So you could have all this information and use it to your advantage as it relates to thinking outside the box. And that's how you would be able to separate yourself, because now the art buyer is going to go back and find out from the account team, when are we shooting this? Because she's got to ask that question too, because it's not a ridiculous question. It's a reasonable question, right? It's horribly reasonable, but it's going to make her look good that you brought it up. And someone's going to say to her, no, don't worry about it. We have a huge space that we can block off. We've already thought about it. And that's fine. But you checked off the box. You made her think about something else that wasn't outrageous, wasn't ridiculous. It was a reasonable idea of a reasonable concern, and you already had a solution for it. Turns out in this case we didn't need it, right? But we had it. Any questions?
Unions, do they ever come into play? Especially in cities usually, I think.
Yeah, in this case it doesn't, but like places like Carnegie Hall, or if you're ever shooting in any of the theaters on Broadway, that's all about union.
They have requirements too.
Yeah, I mean, somebody just recently had a photograph. She shot something in Carnegie Hall, this great pianist, and a client is buying it, and she sold the image for like $20,000, and she says to me, I have to ask Carnegie Hall if it's okay. And I said, that's great. And it turns out that she had to give money to the union for the shot. Now you couldn't tell if that was shot in this room or Carnegie, you couldn't tell. It was such a tight shot. But there's some type of regulation. If you shoot in Carnegie Hall, they always get a piece. Go no. Yep.
How do you do the research to find out what agency has what client?
There's a number of things. You can go to Adweek.
Okay.
And you punch in Embassy Suites, and you probably find an article or two about them, and then from the article you'll read that BBDO Atlanta has it. It's very, very easy, And then you go to the website, you see it, and off you go. Even just Googling Embassy Suites ad agency, you probably can find it out. And you should absolutely do that. Between the clients and the ad agencies. Just to know, so when you're on the phone, you're a little bit more knowledgeable than the next guy. Any other question? Okay. All right, and the last one. So this is an editorial piece. And I saw that, and I love this photograph. Absolutely love this photograph. So what it is, it's, you can pass that down around back there. It's the American flag, of course, made up of jeans. Right? I mean, I just, the whole idea around it is just great. And it ended up being on their Departure. It was in Departures magazine, but it's also on their website. And from my standpoint, you're a still life photographer. It's going to be a great piece for the website. You're going to get exposure on Departures. You get the photo credit on the Departure website and in their magazine. I called the photographer, and I couldn't get anything out of him. It was bad timing when I called. But what I can tell, from that ad or from that editorial piece, there's 16 pairs of jeans. I would imagine they probably had maybe 50 or 60 pairs there on the shoot to pick from, to select, to make it just right. I'm also thinking that the stylist worked for 3 days to get them. I'm thinking that the crew worked pretty cheaply. And I would bet it probably took, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 days to lay that whole thing out and make it just so. Any still life people in here? Yeah, everyone, everything takes forever, God love the still life photographer. Just to get it so. And then you could tell that they didn't want it, perfect. They wanted it, with the wrinkles and just right, and the folding of it. But what a great piece to have in your portfolio. Really, really nice. I'm telling from the reaction here, no one sees it the way I do, but I love this shot. I absolutely love this shot. No one's going to tell me it's not great. But anyway, going back. So, what's the value in this? The value for this is more about what's good for me as it relates to my portfolio and growing in the fashion space, right? And getting all those jeans, and maybe out of that, when it goes into Departures or it goes into on their website, one of the fashion designers sees it and likes the idea that you came up with, and you solve this solution for them. How do you show a whole bunch of jeans in an intriguing, interesting way? And that's a way to do it. I had never seen that, I think he probably has a nice relationship with that client, so he probably does a lot of good things for them, so they'll call him again. So now, also, even part of that, when a client sees those ads, it helps you down the road with the ad agency. Somewhere else, somebody is going to see that. And you never know where you're planting your seeds to get something else from this job that you made no money on. That's for sure. That job, I'm sure that guy made no money at all. He got maybe $300 for that, which he gave to the stylist and the assistant, and they had popcorn for lunch. But he's got a nice piece out of it. Yes, dear.
Did you know, for example, that the people on this shot weren't paid well? It doesn't look like it's.
Which one, dear?
The gene.
Because it's an editorial job. So editorial is not advertising, so there are no budgets. So very small, and magazines are a dying breed as it is. So it's more, they had this idea, and they probably used the photographer for part of the creative solution. We want to do this, we want to do a piece on jeans, in this issue. What can we come up with? and someone said, let's do the, what's more American than jeans, and someone said, let's make a flag out of it. Probably as simple as that. No?
Maybe they got to keep the jeans.
Could it? That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. I mean, certainly and certainly if you are a jeans manufacturer, you want your jean in that photograph, right? So you saw Ralph Lauren there, and you saw Calvin Klein and whomever, right? I mean,
got to be on top.
right there you go. Any other questions? Yep.
In relative to the cheese wheel, where the cheese wheel ad,
Yep.
it was shot originally for British Airways, but let's say you did call them 3 years later with the 3-month thing, and they were like, we used it.
We're done.
We milked it for all it's worth, all puns intended, and now you've got this thing that you didn't. How do you resell that? Then do you go to the cheese people, or do you?
Well, I mean, that's a great idea. Do you go to the cheese people? Do you go to the airline? Do you go to Boeing, who made that engine? Yeah. Right? I mean, there's a lot of different possibilities. But when that situation happens, what I would do is, all right, so now you're not using it anymore, right? Totally done. And now, 6 months from now, somebody sees the photograph from Boeing, and they want to buy that photograph. I would call back the ad agency as a courtesy. Just so you know, Boeing has called to use, they want to buy this photograph. Are you okay with us selling it? Just as a courtesy. And you may get, I'm really, we're not totally thrilled that you're doing that, but, they understand that they only bought it for 3 years. So they may come back to you and say, you know what, that isn't a Boeing that isn't a Boeing engine. Or, yeah, it could be, it's not a Boeing engine, I don't know why you'd sell it to Boeing, or go sell it, you own all the rights to it, and it's fine. But I think the more important thing is to just give them the courtesy that, this situation has come up. Yep.
In that particular situation just described, if the client is the one that paid for that cheese to be shaped like the engine, doesn't that really cause an issue for you?
Well, I mean, it's a little bit dicey. It's a little bit. I mean, you own the cheese. I mean, you own that photograph, right? And when the day is over, you own it. It's now, and you've given them the courtesy of the call. Even if you could say to them, listen, give me half the fee. Give me something so I don't feel like I'm losing this money. I'd like to do the right thing for you guys. Those are the kind of situations where you got to lose. I mean, you're not going to come out of that really well unless you, and this is the other piece of it. You find out that it's only going to run in these kind of publications because it's only going to run in aeronautics publications. So that helps you as it relates to the travel industry. No, you're probably the two sets of the clients, two sets of consumers are not going to see it. The other piece of it, the airline piece, who wants to buy it now, they have to know for 3 years that it ran. So you don't want to talk yourself out of money falling from a tree, but everybody's in business. But it's tough. It's not easy. Yep.
I was sort of trained by this old kind of business axiom that the first one to name a number loses. So how do you feel about that when you're estimating? I generally go through an estimation process and then I'll solidify it into a quote with a work agreement.
Right.
But did you generally try to avoid being the first one to name a number and trying to get that budget out of them?
I mean, as far as finding out in the early part of the process what they have?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times you get a call and they want to know what some vague idea costs, and you need a lot more information to estimate it, right? But they're trying to go some sort of, I won't hold you to it, just
and they always do.
Right. So how do you approach that kind of?
Well, what you have to say, this is before I'm even putting. I mean, this is exactly what I would say before I'm even putting numbers on the paper. and I would almost itemize it out, in my head to them. All right, you're going to have, talent, you're going to have travel days, you're going to have hotels, you're going to have this. You got to be thinking somewhere in the 25-30 range, some type of a range, and say, you know what, give me 2 hours, and I'll just put something down for you so I can give you a better idea, right? And you can say plus usage and plus talent. Something. And if you're lucky at that moment, you're not terribly busy, where you could put some preliminary numbers down, and and then you move from there. But I mean, that's always a tough one. You always got to probably try to do it a little bit higher, but and you got to use all those disclaimers. Don't hold me to it. It's preliminary. It's this. It's this. It's this. And of course they will. But there's no magic bullet there to get out of that one. Yeah.
As far as copyright ownership after the 3 years runs out, do your photographers or do you advise them to officially copyright with the government those images? So in the case of that image was in the airport and he said $25,000, so they're in a position if they need to sue for their.
No, none of my, most people I know don't do that copyright, but everyone has the purchase order. And the purchase order says clearly, your usage is 2 years. 2 years west of the Mississippi, 2 years USA, 2 years USA, all of North America. And that holds. If you have that, that is enough to say you're using this photograph and you're infringing on my copyright. That's as clear as day. Clear as I should have saved that message. Any other questions?
Yeah, one question. What I used to do years ago, I used to do video production for agencies. Sometimes they would take up to 3 months to pay. Is that normal? And what do you have to do? I mean, the crew. Do you have are you expected to have enough cash flow that while you're waiting to be paid, that you can pay, the crew that worked on this production? I mean, how does that work?
Well, part of it, I mean, you're in business. You should have some money to pay, but you put in for an advance. So some of those jobs that are bigger jobs, that it's $100,000 job or a $50,000 job, whatever it is, you put in for an advance on your expenses. And most agencies will give you 50% or 70% of your estimated expenses. So, which isn't fair, of course. At some point, a photographer feels like a bank. And that's really not fair because you're dealing with, this agency or that agency. Again, that's the nature of the animal, and some can take 90 days to pay you. And yeah, it's and you're looking at Pepsi or Microsoft, and they don't have cash flow. All right. Good. Right on time.
For more information, please visit us online, give us a call, or stop by our New York City Superstore. You can also connect with us on the web.